So, in my last review, it's possible that I might have made a slightly controversial statement regarding Star Trek. Namely, that in my opinion, Enterprise is superior to Next Generation. Now, don't get me wrong, I love Next Generation. In fact, I love all the Star Treks. My personal ranking for them would be DS9 as the best, then Enterprise, then Next Generation, then the original series, and then Voyager. And that's not to say I hate Voyager in any way. I love Voyager, it's great. Okay, Voyager's pretty damn good, but it's certainly the most flawed of all the Star Trek series. And that's pretty much the same way I feel about Next Generation. When Next Generation is good, it's really damn good. But let's be honest, for every truly great episode of Next Gen, there's a whole bunch of really bad ones, and a couple that really, really suck. Enterprise, to counter that, is actually a pretty consistently good show. The first couple of seasons are pretty average on the whole, but there's nothing in them that I really hate. And series 3 and 4 are basically excellent throughout. Okay, yes, I probably should bring up the finale of Enterprise, which, well, every fan of the show hates it for obvious reasons, but I barely count that as an episode of Enterprise because it focuses primarily on Troy and Riker from Next Generation. Now, I feel the need to clarify something. I'm not attempting to say that every episode of Enterprise is better than every episode of the Next Generation. That's completely wrong. In fact, I'm not even going to try and argue that the best of Enterprise is as good as the best of Next Generation. What I'm arguing is that Enterprise is more consistent. Here's the thing. As much as I love episodes like The Measure of a Man, The Inner Light, The Arsenal of Freedom, I honestly would want to watch them and then not bother watching the rest of the series as well. With Enterprise, I can happily sit down at Series 1, watch the whole thing through in a few days, and enjoy almost all of it. Same goes for DS9, or at least DS9 from about Series 3 or 4 onwards. Once the Dominion really start coming in, that's when DS9 gets good, and that's why it's honestly the best. As for Enterprise, I think it's a real pity it never got the 5th season, which would have focused primarily on the dealings of the Romulan War, which was hinted at back in Balance of Terror. And honestly, yeah, it could have been really, really good. The cast was pretty solid, and I know a lot of people like to take the piss out of Scott Bakula as the captain, but I like him. I think he works. Now, granted, yes, Next Gen probably has a superior cast. You know, in the classic Picard versus Archer fight, Picard is obviously going to walk it, but that doesn't really matter, because on average, Enterprise told better stories. And yes, I appreciate that I keep bringing up this on average thing, but ultimately that's how you've got to judge a series. You can't just cherry pick all the really good bits and forget about all the bad stuff. Because let's be honest, there's a lot of very bad episodes of Next Generation. Nobody ever wants to rewatch The Child. It's terrible. But when it was good, and I would never ever try and deny that. All I'm trying to say is that Enterprise is to me the superior show because it managed to be consistently good or excellent. Next Generation is very, very good when it's good. But ultimately, it's just not that good that often. It's the same classic conundrum of everybody says that, you know, the even-numbered Star Trek films are the good ones and the odd-numbered ones suck. It's exactly the same for most of the shows. Each individual episode could be amazing, or it could be horrible, or more likely it could simply be average. And that's particularly true of Voyager and of Next Generation, and obviously the original series. Because Enterprise and DS9 established ongoing stories that pretty much got to the point where they were saying, and now the continuation, rather than ever saying, and now the conclusion, they actually were able to tell better stories overall. And I actually really like the fact that the last series of Enterprise basically spends an entire season going, oh, you know that thing that doesn't make sense from the original series? Here's how it makes sense. Right down to the Klingon head bumps. I love that explanation. It actually works really, really well. Ultimately, I appreciate this is not a popular view among Star Trek fans, but it's the view I hold, and I hope that I've at least given you something to think about. Go rewatch Enterprise, See what you think. If you still hate it because whatever reason, fine. That's your opinion, and I'm not trying to say that you shouldn't believe what you choose to believe. I'm just saying, don't try and make me believe something else either.